In this video, we'll be talking about some manga spoilers, but also how the anime might be spoiling the manga, so spoiler warning for everybody, I guess. What up people, it's Zach, and today I want to talk about the potential matchup of the Straw Hats versus Kaido based off the fights we're seeing in the recent chapters of the manga. So unfortunately for anime onlys, that is your warning, there will be manga spoilers. But if you're looking for a video that has no manga spoilers, got a video for you right here about how the Straw Hat crew might disband. But yeah, in the recent chapters of the manga, the Straw Hats versus the Tobi-Roppo fights, they've been really going quite fast, and some people, myself kinda included, have been a little disappointed. But that did get me really thinking, because there should be a lot of chapters left in Wano still, because there's still a lot of unresolved things. So what if these Tobi-Roppo matchups are just really an appetizer and we're saving up for a bigger matchup of the Straw Hats versus Kaido? So in this video, we'll be breaking down that possibility, how it could tie into the Nine Shadows prophecy, how the anime might have spoiled it as well, and how there could be a Thriller Bar connection. But before we get into that, I want to shout out the King Pirates crew, which we just hit 37,000 members. Now this time I really need your guys' help for a future video. I need you guys to comment below One Piece mysteries that you feel like Oda might not fully flesh out by the end of the story. That's a future video I want to do, and I'm gonna go through all the comments in this video and pick out the best ones and discuss them in that video. Also, if you're not yet part of the King Pirates crew, make sure you subscribe and join us on the adventure. But back to the video, let's start by discussing the Straw Hats versus the Tobi-Roppo matchups, because they've gone really fast and they've been kind of the focus in the last few chapters. The last two chapters have both been dedicated to Tobi-Roppo matchups, with Jinbei versus Who's Who and Frankie versus Sasaki. And as I mentioned, some people have been pretty disappointed with how quickly these fights are going by, with not much like struggle or really a lot of fleshing out or dedication to these fights. And I think the disappointment is somewhat warranted, but it might be too early to judge. See, when we first got into Onigashima and we were introduced to the Tobi-Roppo, right away people started speculating about matchups. I made many videos talking about Wano matchups, and I think a lot of people nailed those matchups, and it really felt like for the first time we're gonna get some Straw Hat 1v1s really since Enies Lobby. Like, we got some 1v1s in Fishman Island, but those weren't really great matchups. Nobody even remembers those guys' names. So this was something a lot of people were excited about, but since then things have kind of gone sideways. Different interferences have popped up, which kind of makes sense because we are in the middle of a war, but Big Mom's influence did drastically change the matchups we thought we were gonna have, with Ulti versus Nami and Usopp versus Page 1. Page 1 straight up just gets taken out by Big Mom, and we don't even really get a battle out of Usopp and Page 1. Meanwhile, Ulti also gets blasted by Big Mom, severely injuring her. She does come back, so give her credit for that, but then Nami essentially just one-shots her without really doing anything herself. So the matchups we thought we were gonna get didn't exactly happen, and they weren't really actually 1v1 fights. They were just quick scraps that kind of happened. And initially people were like, is there a possibility that they might get back up, because how Wano has gone, a lot of people have been knocked out and getting back up. But then Bao Huang went out of her way to announce that Page 1 and Ulti were both defeated, so at that point it felt like it wasn't gonna happen. And then we've had the recent two chapters, which I thought were solid fights but still weren't like the greatest fights ever. Who's Who versus Jinbei was more interesting because of all the reveals that Who's Who was just airing out, but I thought the fight was more fitting because Jinbei is quite strong, and I really wanted to see him just kind of body Who's Who and just show off his moves. But the fight did go kind of quick, and although a lot of people don't expect Who's Who to be completely done, I think as far as a fight goes against Jinbei, Jinbei has that in the bag. Like, if Who's Who is gonna come back, I think it's more so narrative wise to like get involved with CP0 or X Drake with Sword. I don't think he's popping back up and having a second wind and pushing Jinbei back against the wall. And I think that becomes more evident when in the next chapter the same thing kind of happens to Sasaki. In 1019, Frankie also gets to show off his powers and his battle intelligence and just easily wins against Sasaki. And like I mentioned in my chapter review, I thought the fight was pretty good, but it did go kind of quick and there really weren't that many stakes. Like, Frankie wasn't really struggling at all, and that's really why a lot of people are disappointed. When you compare these fights to the 1v1s we saw in Enies Lobby and Alabasta, it just isn't on the same level. Like, with all those fights, we saw it from beginning to end fully fleshed out. We saw the Straw Hats struggling, really having to like figure their way out of this and win the battle. And even lengthwise is not really comparable. I went back and read those chapters in Alabasta and Enies Lobby, and those fights were pretty consistently 2 to 3 chapters, which really isn't that long, but when you compare it to these one chapter fights, it's like 2 to 3 times longer. And some people have made the argument that the Wano anime will flesh things out like it has been doing, and I feel like that's a weak argument, because at the end of the day, the manga is Oda's story, so for him to lean on the anime as like supplementary material is kind of a weak excuse. So to me, these Tobi-Roppo matchups, if that's all we get for the Straw Hats, is rightfully criticized. But the thing is, the arc is is not over, it's too early to judge, and there could be a lot more things Oda is planning. And there absolutely is still a lot more story left in Wano and a lot more time for these characters to keep doing their thing. Onigashima is still floating in the sky, Kaido has yet to be defeated, Luffy still has to make his way back up. There's still a good amount of gap left to be filled, so for Oda to wrap up these fights and free up the Straw Hats so early, you gotta expect that he's planning something with them. So could the answer be the Straw Hats all teaming up together and fighting Kaido? Now first off, I just want to say this is not my original idea. I've seen a lot of different people bring up this idea in my comments, and I even know that previously I kind of shut down this idea because I thought we were getting 1v1. So to all the people that I neglected, I'm really sorry. This is a really good theory because honestly there's a lot backing this as well. First off, just looking at the way the story is progressing, you could definitely see a scenario where the Straw Hats do make their way up to Kaido and start fighting him for the time being. Of course, right now we have Yamato versus Kaido. That should lead to a flashback and give us more information. But although I think Yamato is pretty strong, she should not be able to hold off Kaido for that long in a 1v1. Meanwhile, Luffy is still recovering from his injuries, and that's not even considering the fact he has to somehow make it back up to a floating island in the sky. So I think there's definitely a possibility that we need somebody else to step up to the plate while Luffy is still making his way back up. Now there are still some questions with the other Straw Hats like Zoro and Sanji. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But first, I just kind of want to look at this from a story perspective because Luffy being down right now and recovering and making his way back up, it's a pretty common thing we see in the story. Oda really likes to have Luffy have this bounce back moment. We've seen it consistently throughout the story, and it gives him an opportunity to show off the other Straw Hats and other characters. And I think initially we really looked at this as Enies Lobby or Alabasta, where Straw Hats are getting 1v1s while Luffy is bouncing back. But the arc that this could be really similar to is Thriller Bark. And I think it's no coincidence that Thriller Bark was the first arc that we got introduced to Wano in. So many other elements are coming back into play from that arc as well, like Ryuma and the Ancient Giant stuff. So for Wano to mirror that arc in some ways definitely seems like something Oda would do. And well, let's look at what happened in Thriller Bark. It was the first arc where we really got all the Straw Hats teaming up together to fight one big enemy. The only other time that really happened was Sabaody, but we don't need to talk about that one because that was not a good showing for our guys. But yeah, in Thriller Bark, Luffy at some point is taken out of action. He has to go after Moria, and then eventually he starts collecting all these shadows. But in the meantime, Ore shows up and is a big problem, and the rest of the Straw Hats have to team up and hold him off until Luffy comes back. And that Straw Hat team up fight happened after some of the Straw Hats did get some quick 1v1s. Usopp defeated Perona, Chopper defeats Hogback, Sanji defeats Absalom. But when we think about Thriller Bark, we don't really think about those quick 1v1 fights. What really was epic was the Straw Hat team up fight. So I think the same thing could be happening in Wano here. These Tobiropo fights might just be some appetizers before we get the Straw Hats teaming up against Kaido. I guess the next couple of chapters will be a great indicator. Will we see Robin quickly defeating Black Maria, or is it gonna be a fully fleshed out fight where she's really struggling like an Enies Lobby type of battle? And honestly, with the way things are going and the fact that Brook is there with Robin, I think there's a good chance that that fight is also one chapter. But again, if that does happen, I don't think we should just jump the gun and be disappointed because there's a good chance that this arc is mirroring Thriller Bark and we're gonna get Kaido versus the Straw Hats. The other thing to point out is that there are other elements that are kind of mirroring Thriller Bark, where some people have said that Big Mom might be the Kuma of this arc. So that just goes to show Oda could be taking inspiration from Thriller Bark in more than one way. Now besides Thriller Bark, there's also the anime opening, which many people have pointed out, and that is because the anime opening actually spoiled manga readers with the whole Denjiro reveal. At one point in the openings, they showed Kiyoshiro along with the Scabbers kind of hinting that he might be Denjiro, and then later in the manga we found that out to be true. So that absolutely proved that the writers of the anime at least know a little bit of what's gonna happen in the story. So of course we kind of have to look at the fact that they feature a Straw Hats versus Kaido fight in the opening. It's a pretty prominent part of the song, and I gotta admit it looks pretty epic, so I'm totally down to see it. I know this might be a bit of a stretch as far as evidence goes, but the fact that the Denjiro thing happened, we have to at least look at this. But on the other hand, another thing that could prove to be evidence is the prophecy of the 9 shadows. This was something that Toki spoke to the people of Wano in her last moments. She essentially talked about 9 shadows appearing in 20 years and bringing upon the dawn. Now we're not gonna dig too deep into this conversation with the Dawn of the New World stuff because that could get into a lot of stuff, but specifically with the 9 shadows thing, that was very interesting because that's a very specific number. The fact that she mentioned 9 shadows was definitely foreshadowing for Oda to show us 9 people later coming into Wano and defeating Kaido. So at some point this definitely has to happen. Now of course there's been a lot of different theories on this. Very early on people have talked about the supernova, but right now that looks very unlikely. Some people have joked that it's Zoro's Ashura. At one point I did think it was going to be the 9 Scabbers Scabbards, which we did actually see. We essentially had Izo replace Kandro, and we had 9 versus 1 against Kaido. And we do get a scene from the Scabbards that kind of mirrors the anime opening with the Straw Hats. But to be fair, the Scabbards got absolutely bodied. They definitely did not bring on the dawn of the new world. Also, a couple of them should be dead, so for them to be the 9 shadows Toki was referencing, that wouldn't really make too much sense. And honestly, at this point, besides the possibility of just 9 random people put together, which is pretty much impossible to predict, the only group left that makes sense are the Straw Hats without Luffy. And I think that makes a lot of sense because Luffy has had a lot of ties to being Joy Boy and being the one to liberate the world. And with the way the story is going right now, I could definitely see it happening. Before this scenario to happen, there are still a few more questions like Zoro and Sanji and their fights. Most likely their fights are going to be King and Queen, what many people predicted. And if those fights are their 1v1s, those are not fights that should be over very quickly. Like Frankie defeating Sasaki in 1 chapter was getting kind of iffy, but if Sanji takes out Queen in just 1 chapter, I feel like that would just be a little unrealistic. I know Zoro and Sanji have both gotten power-ups, but Luffy struggled 15 hours against 2 sweet commanders. It wouldn't make much sense for both Zoro and Sanji to just breeze through these fights. But at the same time, if they do get into these really tough fights, it wouldn't really make sense for them to go fight Kaido afterwards either. But in response to this, I think we really have to consider the situation they're in. With the Tobi Roppo fights, the Straw Hats were all kind of isolated to themselves, at least with Who's Who and Sasaki, and as we saw with Pedro and Ulti, Big Mom got involved and actually helped. Well, with Zoro and Sanji, they are also in the live floor where there's many other people involved. Marco's there right now, and of course he can help heal them if needed, but there's also 2 Scabbards there that are just kind of there with no other matchups. Izo and Kawamatsu are both there with really no opponents to fight, and I don't see them just being fodder control, so they could definitely contribute and help. And I think that's what it comes down to in the main floor. It's not really gonna be a 1v1 matchup, and more so just like a bar fight. It could kind of turn into much more of just like a tag team battle royale where everybody's fighting everybody. So with the live floor area, I see a situation where the fight is a little easier because of how many people are there, or maybe Zoro and Sanji do their thing for a while and fight some really high div fights before the rest of them just kind of take over and just let them go to Kaido. But then the other thing we also have to consider is what's gonna bring all the Straw Hats together to go up against Kaido. And I think this is where the death of the Scabbards could really come into play because nobody else really knows about that yet. And the Straw Hats finding out about the death of somebody like Kinemon, who's practically a Straw Hat, that's gonna be really motivating for them to go after Kaido. Kiku and Zoro have a connection as well. We saw Zoro's reaction when he saw Kiku's arm. Sanji and Kinemon have a very strong relationship. Zoro and Kinemon as well, him learning Foxfire style. So maybe after Yamato has defeated and all these other fights are kind of sorted, the Scabbard's death could kind of be the next motivating factor for the Straw Hats to step up and fight Kaido. And honestly, I really like this idea because I do think the Straw Hats need more to do for the rest of the arc. Zoro, I've pretty consistently said that he should have another shot at Kaido. I don't think he was satisfied with his last attack. Usopp hasn't done much. We need to see more from his observation hockey. I want to see more out of Nami, Frankie, and Jinbei. Depending on how the Robin and Brook fight goes, we might want more from them as well. Chopper's been a person that I didn't see any opponent for him, so him going up against Kaido and doing just a little bit would be pretty cool. And I think giving them this second fight would not only be a great way to showcase their powers, but it will also set them up with a lot of clout post Wano to step into the role of a Pirate King's crew. That's it for this video. Got another video right here on the future leaders of the Marines. Check out my links in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.